Good morning everyone, today we're going to be talking about my favorite class, which is the Braver, and this is essentially going to be a guide on how I personally play the Braver. Now I only use the katana, I do not use the bow, so if you are looking for a bow Braver guide, let me know in the comment section below and I'll make a bow Braver guide specifically for you guys. But before we jump into the video, if you're new to the channel, I upload NGS content daily, so if you do play this game, I would really appreciate a subscribe as it really helps out the channel. Anyway, without further ado, let's begin the video. Alright, so the very first thing I want to talk about is of course the skill points, because we got an additional 10 skill points since our level cap has increased significantly. So when we go to the Braver skill tree over here, you're going to notice that I have not put any points into the bow skills because I am a katana Braver only. However, if you want to do a hybrid build, it's very simple. All you're going to do is you're going to take away points from Resta Effect Amplifier and allocate those 5 skills into the 5 bow abilities over here instead, and thus you have a very balanced build in case you want to use both weapons. Because Resta Effect Amplifier doesn't really offer much, it just allows you to heal a little bit more when you're using a Resta sign, which is the green flowers. So yeah, just heals 20% more if you have 5 points in this. If you don't, well, it's not that big of a deal, okay? But now let's talk about the Katana Braver. The first skill is Brave Combat. This is very important. You need Brave Combat because it allows you to deal a lot of additional damage as well as restore HP and PP when you end Brave Combat. So please take 1 point in that. Breakfall HP gain is very useful as a Braver main class or a Braver subclass. This is basically whenever you get knocked down and you press spacebar, you automatically heal 15% of your maximum HP if Braver is your main class, and if you have Braver as a subclass, you heal 10% of your maximum HP. Very nice skill to have, and I definitely recommend putting 5 points if you can afford it. Mighty Guard is very nice against certain urgent quests when you just want to block instead of counter, so if you do make a mistake and you mistime your counter, at least you can still block the attack and take less damage. Brave Spirit is a new skill. This is your bread and butter right here. This skill alone has made the Braver extremely strong. What it does is temporary increased PP recovery when attacking, as well as the potency of your normal attack and counters when you perform a successful perfect guard with a weapon action. So the weapon action for the katana is literally a block. If you hold it down, you block. However, if you time the weapon action the moment you get hit, you actually do a counter attack. And if you have Brave Spirit, the moment you do this counter attack, you'll have this purple aura around you signifying that Brave Spirit is activated. Whenever Brave Spirit is activated, all of your auto attacks as well as your counters deal significantly more damage. So because of this, when you are fighting single targets, especially veterans, gigantics, or urgent quest bosses, the main skills you want to be doing is just spamming counter attacks as well as auto attacks. That will net you the most damage possible compared to any other skill. There is one exception to that, and that is of course activating Brave Combat and then auto attacking and countering, and that will get you even more damage. And don't forget, at the end of Brave Combat you have to activate the skill again in order to conclude it and deal additional damage. Now, if everything I just said just flew over your head, don't worry, I will be showcasing this very shortly. The next skill is Brave Combat Short Range. What this skill does is when Brave Combat is active and you just auto attack, you actually do a short gap closer. Keep in mind, this ability is extremely useful in the sense that you can gain elevation. This is very useful when you're fighting Didols or very big dolls where you need the elevation in order to hit their weak spot. Just by having Brave Combat Short Range will actually allow you to continuously gap close and gain elevation so that you can actually reach all of those weak spots without using a wired lance. Katana Perfect Guard PP gain is a must. Every time you counter, you regenerate some PP, which is really useful so that you can continuously push out damage, because when you counter, you're dealing a lot of damage, you're getting your PP back so that you can cast Photon Arts or cast other abilities in order to maximize DPS. Now when we look at the bottom row over here, we have Brave Combat Short Cycle. You can put 5 points into this or you can put 3 points depending on your personal playstyle. What this does is it determines the effect duration of Brave Combat. So the less points you have in this, the longer Brave Combat lasts. However, the cooldown for Brave Combat is going to be longer. I personally put 5 points into this because we got this new skill over here called Final Bonus Surprise. So what Final Bonus Surprise does is it actually amplifies Brave Combat Final Bonus. And Brave Combat Final Bonus recovers your HP and PP when Brave Combat ends, based off the number of times you hit enemies while Brave Combat was active. So for every time you hit an enemy while Brave Combat is active, you actually recover 0.3% of your maximum HP and 1% of your maximum PP. However, it doesn't recover it when Brave Combat is active. It recovers it all at once when you end Brave Combat. So this is extremely powerful. However, there is a limit to this where you only recover 30% of your maximum HP and 100% of your maximum PP at 100 hits. So now you have to ask yourself, can I get 100 hits before my Brave Combat ends within 15 seconds? So now you guys are probably asking me, Kero, there's no way you can hit an enemy 100 times within 15 seconds. Well, that is actually where Final Bonus Surprise comes in. So what Final Bonus Surprise does is it doubles the amount of hits. So for example, when I hit the enemy one time, it's going to count as if I hit the enemy twice for the Brave Combat Final bonus. So the TLDR is I only need to hit the enemy 50 times in order to recover 30% of my maximum HP and 100% of my maximum PP. And with how fast the Braver attacks, it is very easy to get 50 hits onto an enemy within the 15-second duration of Brave Combat Short Cycle. And this is why I put 5 points into Brave Combat Short Cycle, so that I can activate Brave Combat every 60 seconds. So basically I can recover 100% of my PP as well as 30% of my maximum HP every minute, which is really nice and gives the Braver a lot of survivability. Because one, you have Breakfall HP gain, which gives you 15% of your maximum HP back every time you get knocked over. You have Rest Assign Effect Amplifier over here, which gives you 20% more healing. And then now you have Brave Combat Final bonus, which heals you for 30% of your maximum HP every 60 seconds. So these are all very powerful abilities which give you a lot of damage as well as a lot of sustainability. But now let us talk about the meat and potatoes of the Braver class, and that is countering. So Katana Guard Counter. This ability will allow you to perform a counter whenever you perform a perfect guard. Remember, if you do a perfect guard, you take no damage, and with a point in Katana Guard Counter, you deal damage whenever you deal a perfect guard. But we can bring this a step further. We can get Katana Guard Counter Advance, which additionally adds a shockwave. So now your perfect counters deal range damage as well. The shockwave doesn't hit very far, but at least you hit further than just melee range, which is really nice. Now, Fearless Attitude takes a lot of practice in order to perfect. However, it is very powerful. What it does is it neutralizes enemy attacks to your front at a set time after releasing a Photon Art or normal attack, and automatically unleashes a counter. So Fearless Attitude is essentially the same as doing a perfect counter. However, you don't need to click the weapon action. However, the timing is extremely tight, so you do need a lot of practice in order to perfect this. However, if you do manage to perfect the timing of Fearless Attitude, you can literally constantly go on the offensive. You can keep attacking, keep casting PAs, and you never need to weapon action, and you'll constantly be countering. And the nice thing about Fearless Attitude as well as Katana Guard Counter is it actually procs Brave Spirit, which increases the damage of your auto attacks and your counters. So essentially these abilities complement each other so that you deal even more damage, which is really good. And last but not least is Katana PA Combo Retention. This ability is very important because of how Photon Arts work with the Braver. You have 3 levels of charges. The 3rd level is always going to be the most powerful level, and by having a point in Katana PA Combo Retention, you can actually cast a PA, proc Fearless Attitude, get to your level 2 PA, proc Fearless Attitude again, and get to your level 3 PA. Like that, you can space it out if you have 1 point in this ability. However, if you don't have a point here, the moment you proc Fearless Attitude, then your Photon Art level will go back to level 1. And so it resets every time you proc Fearless Attitude, which is not ideal because that is a DPS loss. Now, one thing I want to point out with the Braver is your perfect guard as well as Fearless Attitude only works 180 degrees in front of you. So when you auto attack, you can see that there's this cone that shows up. That is the radius of your perfect counter. So if any enemy hits you from behind or somewhere that is not covered by this circle, you will take damage. So it's very important to understand the radius of your perfect counter as well as Fearless Attitude, okay? So with that being said, let us jump into actual combat to show you the different skills and what they look like. So when we are over here fighting a boss, we want to prioritize our counters. And you see, once we do a perfect counter, you're going to notice that now I have this purple glowing aura around me, which signifies that Brave Spirit is now active. And basically, we're just going to be timing our perfect counters or weapon action whenever the enemy hits me. Now you can see that my number 4 ability or my Brave Combat is now available. So I'm going to press Brave Combat, and now you can see there is a 15-second countdown timer. And over here, I want to hit the enemy 50 times before that hits 0. And I have to press the button again before the duration ends in order to deal damage. You can see there I dealt 2000 damage, and now there's 1 minute cooldown, but I need to press the button again. If I do not press my Brave Combat before the duration ends, I will not deal that additional damage because you won't sheath your katana. However, you will gain your HP and PP back from that, alright? So just keep that in mind. And you can see over here that this boss, when he hits me, that I don't actually take much damage because I have that HP skill. Whenever I get knocked down, I press spacebar, I recover 15% of my maximum health. So essentially, when you're fighting a boss like this, what you want to do is you want to lock onto whatever the weak spot is. So with the T-Rex, you actually want to focus his head, or there's usually spikes on his back, but I think he's on rage mode already. Yep, he's enraged, so there are no spikes on his back. So you just want to break the headpiece. So you can see over here that I can just use my photon arts if I want, or I can simply just counter as well as auto attack in order to deal damage. But we are going to use Brave Combat over here so that I can just lock on to a spot, and you can see I am only holding down my mouse 1 button and I am literally gap closing to whatever I'm locked onto. I don't need to do anything, I don't need to touch my keyboard, and you will just constantly gap close because of that ability. Now, of course, I did need to end the Brave Combat in order to deal additional damage at the end. If I didn't, I would not have done that extra 2000 damage. So to recap, when fighting a single enemy, what you want to prioritize is positioning, learning the boss rotations so that you can counterattack every single move they do in order to maximize your damage, proc Brave Spirit, and just auto attack it to death. Now, whenever you activate Brave Spirit, that is when you want to use Lotus Lightning, because Lotus Lightning hits the enemy multiple times, and that will help you get your 50 hits within that 15-second period extremely quickly. Then you end Brave Combat to deal additional damage. But if you forget to end Brave Combat, it's not a big deal. You still get your PP and HP back, but you don't get that extra big hitting attack of like 2000, 3000, 5000 damage, which will result in a DPS loss. But again, you know, people forget it's not a big deal. Now for combat zones and farming trash mobs, it's a different story. All you're going to be doing is you're literally going to be spamming Iris Gale over and over and over again, because there's a bunch of enemies clumped up together, especially during a PSE burst, and you just want to hit as many enemies as physically possible, and Iris Gale just so happens to do that. Keep in mind, if you have Brave Combat activated, every enemy you hit once also counts as a hit for Brave Combat. So essentially you can activate Brave Combat, and as long as you're hitting like 10 mobs, if you hit each of them 5 times, boom, you've hit your 50 times, and you can end Brave Combat immediately to restore your HP and PP. However, in most cases, you want to actually absolutely drain all your PP before ending Brave Combat, so you recover 100% of your PP again. That way you can spam more photon arts if needed. Now, some of you guys may be watching the B-roll and wondering to yourselves, Kero, why don't you use PAs more often against this veteran enemy? And the reason for this is because braver photon arts animation lock you for a very long time, and sometimes you don't have enough time to counter. Now, there is a solution to this, and that is of course to use Fearless Attitude. However, I'm personally not that good at the braver yet. I'm not at that level where I don't need to weapon action and I just use Fearless Attitude all the time, because the timing is very tight and takes a lot of practice. Special thanks to all the members for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you again. But yeah, that's all I wanted to cover in today's video. Hopefully you guys found it helpful. If you did, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye!
What can I say except you're welcome for the heals, the boosts, the